Her lips were purple. Her fingers were black. 6-year-old Lily lay crumpled against a frozen wall 73 minutes into dying while her first-grade class continued inside like nothing happened. A substitute teacher had ripped off her coat and locked her outside in -15 degrees because she corrected one spelling mistake. Security footage would later show that teacher standing at the window watching Lily pound the glass with freezing fists, watching her collapse into the snow, smiling. When Gunnar found his daughter, her heart was barely beating. When 97 Hells Angels heard what happened, their engines shook the earth. Justice was coming, and it wore leather. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and follow Lily's story to the very end. Comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now let's begin. The morning started like every other morning in the small house on Cedar Ridge Road. Gunnar was already awake at 5:30, standing in the kitchen with a cup of black coffee, watching the snow pile up against the window. The weather report had called for 6 inches overnight. They got closer to 10. The roads would be brutal, but Gunnar had ridden through worse, much worse. He heard her footsteps on the stairs before he saw her. Small, quick, excited. Lily always woke up like the world owed her an adventure, like every single day held something worth running toward. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, her dark hair still tangled from sleep, her eyes already bright. "Daddy, is it snowing?" Gunnar turned and smiled. "What do you think, baby girl?" Lily ran to the window, pressed her palms against the cold glass and gasped. "It's so much. It's like the whole world turned white." "That's Montana for you." "Can we build a snowman after school?" "If you eat your breakfast and get dressed without me having to ask twice." Lily was already running back toward the stairs. "I'll be ready in 5 minutes." Gunnar shook his head, still smiling. She never took 5 minutes. She took 20 minimum because she got distracted by everything. Books, drawings, the way light came through her bedroom window. Lily noticed things other people missed. She always had. It was one of the things Gunnar loved most about her. One of the things that reminded him so much of her mother. Sarah had been gone 3 years now. Car accident on a mountain road, black ice, a truck that couldn't stop in time. Gunnar had gotten the call while he was on a run with his brothers 200 miles from home. By the time he reached the hospital, she was already gone. He'd walked into that room, seen her lying there, and something inside him had shattered so completely he wasn't sure it would ever heal. But Lily had needed him. 3 years old, suddenly motherless, looking at him with those big brown eyes that held all of Sarah's warmth, all of her curiosity, all of her light. So Gunnar had kept going, not for himself, for her. Everything he did now was for her. "Daddy, I can't find my purple sweater." Her voice floated down from upstairs and Gunnar set down his coffee. "Did you check the laundry basket?" "Which one?" "The one in the hallway." A pause, then "Found it." Gunnar smiled again. Lily was brilliant in ways that constantly surprised him. She could read at a 4th grade level. She could draw portraits that looked like photographs. She could explain why the sky was blue and how gravity worked and why the moon changed shapes. But she could not for the life of her remember where she put her clothes. 23 minutes later, Lily came bounding down the stairs dressed in her purple sweater and jeans, her pink backpack already on her shoulders. She'd managed to tame most of her hair into a ponytail, though several strands had already escaped. "Ready," she announced. Gunnar grabbed his keys from the counter. "Breakfast." "I'm not hungry." "Lily." "I'll eat at school. They have those little cereal boxes." Gunnar wanted to argue, but he looked at the clock and knew they were already running late. He'd pack her an extra snack for lunch. Make sure she ate a big dinner tonight. "All right, let's go." The drive to Winterdale Elementary took 15 minutes on a good day. Today, with the roads covered in snow and ice, it took nearly 30. Gunnar kept the truck in 4-wheel drive, taking the curves slow, watching for patches of black ice. Lily sat in the back seat, her nose pressed against the window, watching the world scroll by. "Daddy." "Yeah, baby." "Mrs. Patterson said we're having a substitute today." "How come Mrs. Patterson's daughter is having a baby? She had to go to the hospital last night." "That's exciting, a new baby." "I hope it's a girl. Girls are better." Gunnar laughed. "Is that so? Boys are loud and they don't listen, and they think they know everything. Some girls are like that too." "Not me." "No, not you." Lily was quiet for a moment, then, "Do you think the substitute will be nice?" "I'm sure she will be." "What if she's not?" Gunnar glanced in the rearview mirror. Lily was still looking out the window, but her voice had gotten smaller, more uncertain. "Why do you think she might not be nice?" "I don't know. Sometimes new teachers don't like me." "Why wouldn't they like you?" "Because I know things, and sometimes when I tell them things, they look at me funny." Gunnar's grip tightened on the steering wheel. This wasn't the first time Lily had mentioned something like this. Last year, a teacher had called her disruptive for asking too many questions. The year before that, another teacher had accused her of cheating because her artwork was too advanced for her age. It was always the same. Adults who couldn't handle a child being smarter than they expected. Adults who felt threatened by a 6-year-old who dared to know more than they did. "Listen to me, Lily." She looked up, meeting his eyes in the mirror. "If anyone ever makes you feel bad for being smart, that's their problem, not yours. You hear me?" "Yes, Daddy." "Your brain is a gift. Don't ever let anyone make you ashamed of it." Lily nodded, but Gunnar could see the doubt in her eyes, the uncertainty. She was 6 years old, and she'd already learned that being different came with a cost. It broke his heart. They pulled into the school parking lot just as the first bell rang. Lily grabbed her backpack and opened the door, then stopped. "Oh no." "What?" "My art portfolio, the one with all my family day drawings. I left it on the kitchen table." Gunnar closed his eyes. The family day presentation was today. Lily had been working on those portraits for weeks. Her grandmother, her Uncle Jake, her father, and in the center a drawing of her mother recreated from photographs and memories and love. She'd been so proud of them. "It's okay," he said. "I'll bring it to you." "Really? Really, I'll go home, get it, and bring it back before your presentation." Lily's face lit up. "Thank you, Daddy. Thank you, thank you, thank you." She leaned across the seat and wrapped her arms around his neck, squeezing tight. Gunnar hugged her back, breathing in the smell of her strawberry shampoo. "Go on, get to class. I'll see you soon." Lily climbed out of the truck, waved once, and ran toward the front doors. Gunnar watched until she disappeared inside her small figure swallowed by the building. Then he put the truck in reverse and headed back home. The roads were worse than before. The snow was still falling heavier now, and the wind had picked up. Visibility dropped to less than 50 feet in places. Gunnar drove carefully, but his mind was on Lily. Something about their conversation was bothering him. The way she'd asked if the substitute would be nice. The fear in her voice, the resignation. She was 6 years old. She shouldn't have to worry about whether adults would treat her fairly. But she did, because the world had taught her that being exceptional came with consequences. Gunnar made it home in 25 minutes. He grabbed the art portfolio from the kitchen table, making sure all the drawings were still inside, still perfect. Then he headed back to his truck. But halfway down the driveway, he stopped. The truck would take too long in this weather. The roads were getting worse by the minute. If he wanted to get this to Lily before her presentation, he needed something faster. Something that could cut through traffic. Take shortcuts, get him there in half the time. He looked at the garage. At the Harley sitting inside. It was crazy. Riding a motorcycle in a blizzard was borderline suicidal. The cold alone could be dangerous, not to mention the ice, the reduced visibility, the wind. But Lily's face flashed in his mind, that moment of panic when she realized she'd forgotten the portfolio. The relief when he promised to bring it. He'd made her a promise, and Gunnar never broke promises to his daughter. He opened the garage, threw a leg over the Harley, and fired up the engine. The roar echoed off the walls, familiar and powerful. He tucked the portfolio inside his jacket, zipped it tight against his chest, and pulled out into the storm. The ride was brutal. Wind tore at him from every direction, cutting through his leather jacket like it wasn't there. Snow flew into his face, stinging his exposed skin, freezing in his beard. The road was a white blur, landmarks, invisible, only the vague sense of direction keeping him on course. His hands went numb inside his gloves after the first 5 minutes. His face followed shortly after. But Gunnar kept going, leaning into the wind, fighting for every mile. Lily was waiting. Lily needed this. Nothing else mattered. 15 minutes later, he pulled into the school parking lot. The building emerged from the white like a ghost, solid and real, and close enough to touch. Gunnar killed the engine and sat for a moment, letting the relief wash over him. He'd made it. He climbed off the bike, pulled the portfolio from his jacket, and checked it. Dry. Perfect. All of Lily's drawings safe and sound. Now he just needed to get it to her. Gunnar started toward the front entrance, but something made him stop. A sound, faint, almost lost in the howl of the wind. He turned his head, listening. There it was again. Soft. Rhythmic. Remember, it sounded like teeth chattering, but not normal chattering. Something worse. Something that spoke of a body pushed past its limits. Gunnar's blood went cold. He moved toward the sound around the corner of the building, past the cafeteria windows, toward the back of the school where the dumpster sat. And then he saw her. A small figure huddled against the brick wall, curled into herself, shaking so violently he could see it from 20 feet away. Dark hair plastered to her head with snow. Skin that had gone past pale into something gray and wrong. Purple sweater, pink backpack. His daughter. The portfolio fell from Gunnar's hands. He was running before he knew he'd moved his boots, pounding against frozen concrete, his heart slamming against his ribs. No. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. He'd dropped her off 90 minutes ago. She'd walked through those front doors. She'd been safe. She'd been inside. But she wasn't inside now. She was out here, in the cold, alone. Gunnar dropped to his knees beside her, his hands reaching for her shoulders, and the cold that radiated from her small body hit him like a physical blow. She was frozen. Actually frozen. Her coat was gone. Her gloves were gone. She was wearing nothing but that purple sweater, and it was soaked through with snow. Lily, baby, look at me. Her eyes opened, but barely. Just slits. The recognition was there somewhere deep, but everything else was confusion and exhaustion, and something that looked terrifyingly like surrender. Daddy, her voice was barely a whisper. Her lips were blue, not pale blue, dark blue, the blue of oxygen deprivation, the blue of a body shutting down. I'm here, baby. Daddy's here. I've got you. He pulled off his jacket and wrapped it around her, but he knew it wasn't enough. She'd been out here too long. The cold had gone through her skin, into her muscles, into her core. She needed help, now. Gunnar scooped her into his arms and ran, not toward the front entrance. There wasn't time for explanations, for paperwork, for bureaucratic nonsense. He ran toward the side door, the one that led directly into the nurse's office. He kicked it open so hard the frame splintered. The nurse, a woman in her 50s named Carol, looked up in shock. Call 911, Gunnar shouted. Now, hypothermia. She's been outside. I don't know how long. Her core temperature is dropping. She needs warming. She needs fluids. Call them now. Carol's training kicked in. She grabbed the phone, dialed, started talking in rapid clip sentences. Gunnar laid Lily on the examination table, stripping off her wet sweater, her soaked shoes, wrapping her in every blanket he could find. Stay with me, baby. Stay with me. Lily's eyes fluttered. Her shaking was getting worse. Violent, uncontrollable tremors that shook her entire body. Daddy, I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Don't ever be sorry. Just stay awake. Keep talking to me. She said I was bad. She said I needed to cool down. Gunnar's hands stopped moving. What? The new teacher. I told her she spelled a word wrong. She got mad. She took my coat and put me outside. The world went red. Gunnar's vision narrowed to a single point. His heart, which had been racing with fear, now pounded with something else entirely. Something darker. Something older. Rage. Pure, primal, all-consuming rage. She put you outside. She said I needed to learn humility. She said I was a show-off. How long, baby? How long were you out there? I don't know. I banged on the door. Nobody came. Gunnar turned to Carol, who had just hung up the phone. Ambulance is on its way. 5 minutes. Did you know about this? Carol's face went pale. Know about what? Did you know my daughter was outside? Did anyone in this building know a 6-year-old child was locked outside in a blizzard? I didn't. Who did this? Who is the substitute teacher? Her name is Mrs. Brennan, Victoria Brennan. She came from the district office. Mr. Gunner, I swear I didn't know. Nobody told me anything. If I had known. But Gunner wasn't listening anymore. He was looking at his daughter, at the blue tinge that still clung to her lips, at the way her small body shook against the blankets. 73 minutes. That's how long it would have been since he dropped her off. 73 minutes in negative 15-degree weather. No coat, no gloves, just a 6-year-old girl who made the mistake of being smarter than her teacher. The ambulance arrived 4 minutes later. Paramedics rushed in, assessed Lily, started an IV of warm fluids, wrapped her in thermal blankets. They loaded her onto a stretcher, talking to each other in the shorthand of people who see emergencies every day. Core temp 91 degrees, moderate to severe hypothermia, possible frostbite on fingers and toes. We need to move. Gunner climbed into the ambulance beside her, holding her hand, refusing to let go. Daddy, I'm here, baby. Am I going to be okay? Gunner looked at her face, at the fear in her eyes, at the trust that still lived there despite everything. You're going to be fine, I promise. Daddy's going to make sure everything is fine. He meant it, every word. But even as he said it, another promise was forming in his mind, a darker promise. A promise made to himself in the part of his soul where the Hell's Angel lived. Someone had done this to his daughter. Someone had taken a 6-year-old child, stripped her of her coat, and locked her outside to freeze. That someone was going to pay. The ambulance screamed through the snow-covered streets, sirens wailing, and Gunner held his daughter's hand and made plans. At the hospital, everything moved fast. Lily was rushed into the emergency room, surrounded by doctors and nurses who shouted orders and ran tests and did everything modern medicine could do to save a child from the cold. Gunner followed as far as they would let him, then stood in the hallway watching through a window as strangers fought for his daughter's life. Core temperature, 91 degrees. She'd been minutes away from organ failure, minutes away from brain damage, minutes away from death, because a teacher didn't like being corrected by a first grader. Gunner's phone was in his hand before he realized he'd pulled it out. He dialed a number from memory, one he knew better than his own. 2 rings, then a voice. Gunner, what's up, brother? Bear, I need you to listen to me. Something in his voice must have communicated the seriousness, because Bear's tone changed immediately. What happened? Someone hurt Lily, someone at her school. She's in the hospital right now. Hypothermia. She almost died, Bear. My baby almost died. Silence on the other end. Then, who? Substitute teacher named Victoria Brennan. She locked Lily outside in the blizzard. No coat. For over an hour. More silence. When Bear spoke again, his voice was cold as the storm outside. What do you need? I need the brothers. I need everyone. This isn't just about punishment. This is about making sure it never happens again, to Lily or anyone else's kid. I'm making calls. You stay with your daughter. We'll handle the rest. Bear. Yeah. Tell them what she did. Tell them she tried to freeze a 6-year-old girl for being too smart. Tell them she almost killed my baby because Lily knew how to spell better than she did. I'll tell them. And Gunner. Yeah, she's going to wish she'd never been born. The line went dead. Gunner slipped the phone back in his pocket and turned back to the window. Inside, the doctors were still working, still fighting. Lily's small form was almost invisible under all the equipment, all the blankets, all the tubes and wires. But she was alive. Her heart was beating. Her lungs were working. She was going to survive. And when she did, when she was safe and warm and home again, Gunner was going to make sure the woman who did this faced consequences she'd never forget. Not violence. That wasn't how this worked. Not anymore. But justice. Real justice. The kind that came from documentation, from evidence, from building a case so airtight that no lawyer, no union, no bureaucratic protection could shield the guilty. Victoria Brennan thought she could hurt a child and walk away. She had no idea who that child's father was. She had no idea what was coming. 2 hours later, a doctor emerged from Lily's room. She was a woman in her 40s with tired eyes and a kind face. Mr. Gunner. He stood up so fast the chair scraped against the floor. Your daughter is stable. We've got her core temperature back up to 95 degrees and rising. She's going to have some frostbite damage to her fingers and toes. We won't know the extent until the tissue fully warms, but I'm optimistic we can avoid any permanent loss. Can I see her brush some In a few minutes, she's asking for you. Gunnar closed his eyes. Relief washed through him so powerful it almost buckled his knees. Thank you. Thank you for saving her. She's a fighter, your daughter. Most kids her age and her condition would have given up. But she held on. She kept fighting. That's my girl. The doctor hesitated, then said, Mr. Gunnar, I need to ask. The police are going to want to talk to you. What happened to Lily? This wasn't an accident. Someone did this to her deliberately. I know. Do you know who? Yes. Are you going to tell the police? Gunnar looked at her. Really looked at her. And in that moment, he made a decision that would change everything. I'm going to do more than tell them. I'm going to make sure there's so much evidence, so much documentation, so much proof that they won't have any choice but to act. That woman isn't just going to lose her job. She's going to prison. And anyone who knew what she did and didn't stop it is going down with her. The doctor nodded slowly. Good. Because what she did, I've seen a lot in my career, but trying to freeze a child to death as punishment, that's evil. That's something that can't be explained or excused. No, it can't. Your daughter is in room 3. She's waiting for you. Gunnar walked down the hallway, his boots echoing on the tile floor. His body ached from the cold, from the ride, from the fear. But none of that mattered now. Lily was alive, and he was going to make sure she stayed that way. He pushed open the door to room 312 and stepped inside. Lily was propped up on pillows, wrapped in heated blankets, an IV drip feeding warm fluids into her arm. She looked small in that hospital bed. Small and fragile and so very young. But when she saw him, her face lit up. Daddy! Gunnar crossed the room in 3 steps and gathered her into his arms, careful of the wires and tubes holding her close. I'm here, baby. I'm right here. I was scared, Daddy. I was so scared. I know you were. But you're safe now. You're going to be okay. She was so mean. She said I was a show-off. She said I thought I was better than everyone else, but I wasn't trying to show off. I just knew the word was spelled wrong. I know, baby, you didn't do anything wrong. She took my coat. She pushed me outside and locked the door. I banged and banged, but nobody came. I tried to find another door, but they were all locked. And then I got so cold I couldn't move anymore. Tears were streaming down Gunnar's face now. He didn't try to stop them. I found you. I came back to bring your art portfolio, and I found you. My drawings. Did you save them? Gunnar closed his eyes. He dropped them in the snow when he saw her. They were probably ruined by now, soaked through and destroyed. Baby, it's okay. I can make new ones. As long as you're here, I can make new ones. And in that moment, holding his daughter in that hospital room, surrounded by machines that beeped and hummed with the rhythm of her recovering life, Gunnar made another promise. He was going to destroy Victoria Brennan. Not with fists, not with violence, with truth. He was going to expose every terrible thing that she'd ever done. He was going to find every child she'd ever hurt. He was going to build a case so complete, so damning, so irrefutable that she would spend years in prison and never teach again. And then he was going to make sure the whole world knew what happened, so that no teacher anywhere ever again would think they could abuse a child and get away with it. Outside somewhere in the storm, 97 engines were warming up. The Brotherhood was coming, and they were bringing justice with them. The night passed slowly in room 312. Gunnar didn't sleep. He sat in the chair beside Lily's bed, watching her chest rise and fall, counting each breath like a prayer. Every time she stirred, every time she whimpered in her sleep, he was there, his hand on hers, his voice soft in the darkness. I'm here, baby. Daddy's here. Around 3 a.m, Lily woke up screaming. No, don't lock the door. Please, I'll be good. I'll be good. Gunnar was on his feet instantly, gathering her into his arms, holding her against his chest while she sobbed. It's okay. It's just a dream. You're safe. You're in the hospital. Nobody's going to hurt you. She locked the door, Daddy. She locked it, and she smiled. She smiled at me through the window. Gunnar's jaw tightened. She smiled. She watched me bang on the door, and she smiled. Then she walked away. The rage that had been simmering in Gunnar's chest flared white hot. This wasn't just negligence. This wasn't just a teacher losing her temper. This was deliberate cruelty. calculated, sadistic. Victoria Brennan had watched a 6-year-old child beg for her life and smiled. Go back to sleep, baby. I promise she's never going to hurt you again. She's never going to hurt anyone again. Lily's sobs slowly quieted. Her breathing evened out. And eventually, exhausted by trauma and medication, she drifted back to sleep. But Gunnar stayed awake, staring at the wall planning. At 6 in the morning, the door opened and Bear walked in. He was a massive man, 6'4", and built like a truck, with a gray beard that reached his chest and arms covered in tattoos. His leather cut bore the Hells Angels patch, worn and faded from decades of riding. He'd been with the club for 30 years longer than Gunnar had been alive. He was also Gunnar's godfather. And right now, looking at Lily in that hospital bed, his eyes were wet. Jesus Christ, Bear whispered. She's so small. She almost died. Another 15 minutes and her organs would have started failing. Bear moved to the bedside, looking down at the sleeping child. His massive hands that had done terrible things in service of the Brotherhood trembled slightly. How old is she? 6. She turned 6 in October. 6 years old, and some teacher decided she needed to freeze to death for being smart. That's about the size of it. Bear was silent for a long moment. Then he turned to Gunnar and his eyes had changed. The softness was gone. What remained was something cold and hard and ancient. I made calls last night. Brothers are coming from 3 states, Idaho, Wyoming, Colorado. By noon, we'll have 97 riders in town. 97? Every man I called wanted in. I had to turn people on. They're angry, Gunnar. We've all got kids, grandkids. When I told them what happened, what that woman did, Bear shook his head. I've never heard the Brotherhood so unified about anything. I don't want violence. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I want to do this right. Define right. I want her in prison. I want her to face a judge and jury and hear them say guilty. I want her to lose everything, her career, her freedom, her reputation. I want the world to know what she did. And if the system fails, if she gets a slap on the wrist and walks, Gunnar looked at his daughter, still asleep, still small, still fragile. Then we'll have a different conversation, but I owe it to Lily to try this way first. She doesn't need a father in prison. She needs a father who fights smart. Bear nodded slowly. All right, we do it your way. But the brothers will be there. Every court date, every hearing, every moment that woman shows her face in public, she's going to see 97 Hells Angels watching her, judging her, waiting. That's exactly what I want. Good. Now, what do you need right now? Information. I need to know everything about Victoria Brennan, where she came from, where she's worked before, whether this is the first time she's done something like this. Already on it. Diesel's got a contact in the school district office. We should have her personnel file by noon. I also need the security footage from the school. There are cameras in the hallways. If she really did watch Lily through the window and smile, it's on tape. I'll make some calls. And Bear invited someone to go back to the school, to the spot where I found her. I dropped her art portfolio in the snow when I saw her. Those drawings, she worked on them for weeks. If there's any chance they survived. Bear put a hand on Gunnar's shoulder. I'll go myself. If they can be saved, I'll save them. Thank you. Don't thank me. This is family. This is what we do. Bear left and Gunnar turned back to his daughter. She was still sleeping, but her face was troubled, her brows drawn together, her lips moving slightly, as if she was talking to someone in her dreams. He wondered if she was reliving it. The cold, the fear, the locked door that wouldn't open no matter how hard she banged. He wondered if she would ever stop reliving it. At 8 o'clock, Detective Sarah Mitchell arrived. She was in her 40s with short brown hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She introduced herself, showed her badge, and asked if she could speak with Gunnar about what happened. I need to know everything, from the beginning. So Gunnar told her, the morning routine, dropping Lily off at school, going back for the art portfolio, the ride through the blizzard, finding his daughter curled against the wall, frozen and barely conscious. Detective Mitchell took notes, her pen moving steadily across the paper. And your daughter told you the substitute teacher did this, Victoria Brennan? Yes, she said Lily corrected her spelling in front of the class. Brennan got angry, called her a show-off, took her coat and put her outside. Then she locked the door. Did anyone else witness this? I don't know. There were other kids in the classroom, 20, maybe 25. They must have seen something. I'll need to interview them, and the other teachers, and the principal. Detective Mitchell looked up from her notes. Mr. Gunner, I have to be honest with you. Cases like this are complicated. Teachers have unions. They have lawyers. The district will try to protect itself. This isn't going to be quick or easy. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care how hard it is. That woman tried to kill my daughter. She watched a 6-year-old child freeze and smiled. She's not walking away from this. Do you have any evidence beyond your daughter's statement? The school has security cameras. There should be footage of everything. Brennan taking Lily outside, Lily banging on the door, Brennan watching through the window. I'll subpoena the footage immediately. And I want to file charges, criminal charges, not just a civil lawsuit, not just a termination. I want her arrested. Detective Mitchell nodded. Based on what you've told me, we're looking at child endangerment at minimum. Possibly attempted murder, depending on what the evidence shows about her intent. But I need to warn you, Mr. Gunner, attempted murder is hard to prove. We'd need to demonstrate that she intended for your daughter to die. She left her outside for over an hour in negative 15-degree weather, without a coat. What else could she have intended? A good defense attorney will argue she just wanted to teach Lily a lesson, that she didn't realize how cold it was, that she meant to bring her back and soak it after a few minutes and got distracted. That's bull. I know, but juries are unpredictable. We need to build the strongest possible case. Every piece of evidence, every witness, every prior incident. Detective Mitchell hesitated. I shouldn't tell you this. It's not public information yet, but given what your daughter went through, you deserve to know. Know what? Victoria Brennan has a history. 3 years ago, she was working at an elementary school in Wyoming. A complaint was filed against her by a parent. A 7-year-old boy claimed Brennan had locked him in a supply closet for 2 hours as punishment for talking back. Gunner felt his blood turn to ice. What happened? Nothing. The district investigated, but there was no physical evidence. It was the boy's word against Brennan's. She was quietly transferred to another school. The records were sealed. So she did this before. She hurt another child and got away with it. It appears so. And nobody thought to mention this when they hired her here. Nobody thought to check her background. School districts don't share disciplinary information the way they should. It's one of the biggest failures in our education system. Problem teachers get shuffled from school to school, their records wiped clean free to hurt more children. Gunner's hands were shaking, not with fear, with rage. That boy in Wyoming. Can you find him? Can you contact his family? I'm going to try. If we can establish a pattern of behavior, it strengthens our case significantly. Do it. Find every child Victoria Brennan has ever hurt. Find every complaint that was ignored. Find every administrator who looked the other way. I want all of it. Detective Mitchell closed her notebook and stood. I'll be in touch. In the meantime, focus on your daughter. She's going to need you in the days ahead. Trauma like this, it doesn't just go away. I know. One more thing, Mr. Gunner. I know who you are. I know about your associations. I need you to let me handle this. If you or your friends do anything to interfere with this investigation, anything that could compromise the case, we're not going to interfere. We're going to watch. That's all. See that you do. She left and Gunner was alone with his sleeping daughter again. A pattern of behavior. Victoria Brennan had done this before. She had hurt other children, and the system had protected her, shuffled her along, given her new victims. How many kids had she damaged over the years? How many parents had fought for justice and lost? How many children had learned to stay silent because speaking up only made things worse? It ended now. Lily woke up around 10 o'clock groggy, but more alert than the night before. The color had returned to her cheeks. Her lips were pink again, not blue. The doctors said she was recovering well, that she might be able to go home tomorrow. But the physical healing was only part of it. Daddy? Yeah, baby. Am I going to get in trouble? Gunner frowned. Trouble for what? For making Mrs. Brennan angry, for correcting her. Maybe I shouldn't have said anything. Maybe if I'd just been quiet. Lily, look at me. She looked up, her brown eyes filled with guilt and confusion. You didn't do anything wrong. You hear me? Nothing. You saw a mistake and you tried to help. That's what smart people do. That's what good people do. But if I hadn't said anything, she wouldn't have gotten mad. I wouldn't have been outside. None of this would have happened. Gunnar took her hands in his, feeling the bandages wrapped around her fingertips where the frostbite had done its damage. Listen to me carefully. What happened to you is not your fault. It's her fault. Only her fault. She's a grown woman, a teacher. She's supposed to protect children, not hurt them. But when she put you outside in that cold, she made a choice, an evil choice, and she's going to face consequences for that choice. What kind of consequences? She's going to lose her job. She's probably going to go to jail. She's never going to teach again. Really? Really? Lily was quiet for a moment. Then, good, because she was mean, Daddy. Really mean. Not just to me, to everyone. Gunnar leaned forward. What do you mean? She yelled at the other kids too. Tommy asked to go to the bathroom and she said no. He had an accident and she made fun of him in front of everyone. And Maria started crying because she didn't understand the math, and Mrs. Brennan called her stupid. Did she hurt anyone else physically? She grabbed Emma's arm really hard. Emma had a red mark after, and she threw Jake's book across the room because he was reading when she was talking. Gunnar's jaw tightened. One morning, Victoria Brennan had been in that classroom for one morning, and she'd already terrorized an entire class of 6-year-olds. Did any of the kids tell their parents? I don't know. Tommy was really embarrassed about his accident. I think he was afraid to tell. What about the other teachers? Did any of them see what was happening? I don't think so. Mrs. Brennan only did mean stuff when nobody else was around. Calculated, deliberate. She knew exactly what she was doing. Thank you for telling me this, baby. It's really important. Is it going to help? Yes, it's going to help a lot. A knock at the door interrupted them. Gunnar turned to see Bear standing in the doorway holding something in his hands. The art portfolio. I found it, Bear said, his voice rough. It was buried in the snow, but I got to it before too much damage was done. Most of them survived. He handed the portfolio to Gunnar, who opened it carefully. Inside were Lily's drawings, slightly damp around the edges, but otherwise intact. Her grandmother, her Uncle Jake, her father, and in the center, the portrait of her mother. Sarah's face looked up at him from the paper rendered in colored pencil with remarkable skill for a 6-year-old. Lily had captured something essential about her, something beyond just physical features. The warmth in her eyes, the slight tilt of her smile, the sense that she was about to laugh at some private joke. Gunnar's throat tightened. Daddy, are those my drawings? He turned to Lily holding up the portrait. They survived, baby. Bear saved them. Lily's face lit up. It was the first genuine smile he'd seen since finding her in the snow. Mommy's picture is okay. It's perfect, just like you made it. Bear moved to the bedside, looking down at Lily with an expression that mixed tenderness with barely contained fury. Hey there, little one, I'm Bear. I'm a friend of your daddy's. Lily studied him seriously. You're really big. I know. It's because I eat all my vegetables. Really? No, not really. I hate vegetables. Don't tell your daddy. Lily giggled, and the sound was like music after a storm. Thank you for saving my drawings, Mr. Bear. You're welcome, but you can just call me Bear. Everyone does. Okay, Bear. Are you a Hell's Angel like my daddy? Bear glanced at Gunnar, who nodded slightly. Yes, I am. I've been a Hell's Angel for a very long time. Daddy says Hell's Angels protect people. Is that true? It's very true. And right now, our whole club is going to protect you. You're part of our family now. That means if anyone ever tries to hurt you again, they were going to have to go through 97 bikers first. Lily's eyes went wide. 97. 97, all of them big and scary like me. All of them ready to make sure you're safe. For the first time since the nightmare began, Lily looked like she believed she might actually be okay. Thank you, Bear. You don't need to thank me, little one. This is what family does. After Bear left, Gunnar sat with Lily while she ate her lunch. Hospital food bland and uninspiring, but she ate every bite. Her appetite was coming back. Her strength was returning. But every few minutes she would glance at the door. Every time someone walked past in the hallway, she would flinch. The physical wounds would heal. The psychological ones would take much longer. At 2 o'clock, Gunner's phone buzzed. A text from Diesel. Got the personnel file. You need to see this. Coming to the hospital now. 15 minutes later, Diesel arrived. He was a lean man in his 50s, with a shaved head and a scar that ran from his left eye to his jaw. He'd been a forensic accountant before joining the club, and his skills at finding information were legendary. Where's your girl? Sleeping, the meds knock her out. Good. She shouldn't hear this. They stepped into the hallway out of earshot of the room. What did you find? Diesel handed him a folder. Victoria Brennan, age 42, been teaching for 18 years. But her record, Gunner, it's bad. How bad? 5 schools in 18 years. That's way too many transfers. And look at the dates. Every 2 to 3 years she moves. That's the pattern of someone running from something. Gunner opened the folder, scanning the documents inside. The Wyoming incident, the kid in the closet. That's just the one that made it into her file. I did some digging, talked to some people. There are rumors of other incidents. A kid in Colorado who fell down the stairs after talking back to her. A girl in Idaho who started cutting herself after a year in Brennan's class. Jesus. It gets worse. Her husband is on the school board, not here, in Wyoming. But he's got connections throughout the region. Every time she gets in trouble, he makes some calls, pulls some strings. The complaints disappear. The records get sealed. She gets a fresh start somewhere new. She's protected. Has been for years, but not anymore. Not after this. Gunner looked at the documents in his hands. Years of abuse. Years of children being hurt. Years of a system looking the other way because someone powerful made phone calls. I want to talk to those families. The ones from before. Can you find them? Already working on it. But Gunner, some of them might not want to talk. Some of them might have signed NDAs in exchange for settlements. Some of them might just want to forget. I understand, but we have to try. If we can get even one of them to come forward to testify, it changes everything. Pattern of behavior, premeditation. This goes from a single incident to a career of child abuse. Exactly. Diesel took the folder back. I'll keep digging. In the meantime, you should know something else. Brennan hasn't been arrested yet. What? The school put her on administrative leave, paid leave. She's sitting at home right now collecting a paycheck while your daughter is in the hospital. The rage that Gunner had been holding back surged forward. How is that possible? The union, they're protecting her until the investigation is complete. Standard procedure. Standard procedure. A woman tries to freeze a child to death and she gets a paid vacation. I know, it's wrong. But if you want her to go to prison, really go to prison, you have to let the process work. Detective Mitchell is doing her job. The evidence is being gathered. The witnesses are being interviewed. And meanwhile, Brennan sits at home watching TV. For now, but not for long. I promise you that. Gunner took a deep breath, forcing the rage back down. Diesel was right. Patience was essential. One wrong move and Brennan's lawyers would use it to get her off. Fine, but I want eyes on her 24/7. I want to know everywhere she goes, everyone she talks to. If she tries to run, if she tries to destroy evidence, already handled. Ghost has been watching her house since this morning. She's not going anywhere without us knowing. Good. There's one more thing, the security footage from the school. What about it? It exists, and it shows exactly what your daughter described. Brennan taking Lily outside, Lily banging on the door, and Brennan watching through the window. Diesel paused, his face dark. She watched for 4 minutes, Gunner, 4 minutes of your daughter begging to be let back in. And then she walked away and went back to teaching like nothing happened. Gunner's hands curled into fists. 4 minutes. 4 minutes. And she was smiling, just like Lily said. Something inside Gunner shifted. He'd been angry before. He'd been furious. But this was something else. Something colder. Something more patient. Victoria Brennan had stood at that window watching a 6-year-old child freeze and smiled. She'd enjoyed it. She was going to pay for that enjoyment. Every smile, every moment of pleasure she'd taken from a child's suffering. She was going to pay for all of it. Is the footage secure? Detective Mitchell has a copy, the school has a copy, and I have a copy. 3 different locations. Even if someone tries to make it disappear, it's not going anywhere. Good. Make sure it stays that way. It will. And Gunner. Yeah. The brothers are here, all 97 of them. They're staying at the motel on Route 12. Whenever you're ready, they want to meet. They want to know the plan. Tomorrow, after Lily's released from the hospital, I need to get her home first. Get her settled. Make sure she knows she's safe. Understood. We'll be waiting. Diesel left and Gunner returned to room 312. Lily was still sleeping, her face peaceful now, the nightmares temporarily at bay. He sat down beside her bed and took her hand, careful of the bandages. 4 minutes. Victoria Brennan had watched his daughter freeze for 4 minutes and smiled. The thought of it made him want to put his fist through a wall, made him want to ride to Brennan's house and show her exactly what fear felt like. But he couldn't, not if he wanted justice, real justice. So he sat there holding his daughter's hand and waited. The war was just beginning, and he intended to win. Lily came home on a Tuesday. Gunner carried her from the truck to the front door, even though she insisted she could walk. She weighed almost nothing in his arms, and he wasn't ready to let her go. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Daddy, I'm okay. You can put me down. Humor me, baby. Inside the house felt different, warmer somehow, despite the cold still pressing against the windows. Gunner had turned the heat up before they left for the hospital, wanting everything perfect for her return. But Lily stopped in the doorway of the living room, her body going rigid. What's wrong? She was staring at the window, at the snow still falling outside. Baby, I don't like the cold anymore, Daddy. Gunner's heart cracked. She'd always loved winter, building snowmen, making snow angels, catching snowflakes on her tongue. Victoria Brennan had taken that from her. You don't have to go outside until you're ready. Not until spring if you want. Okay. Lily nodded, but her eyes stayed fixed on the window, watching the snow, like it might come inside and get her. The first night home was hard. Lily wouldn't sleep in her own room. She kept seeing shadows, kept hearing sounds that weren't there. At midnight, Gunner found her curled up in the hallway outside his bedroom door, shivering. I had a bad dream. She was there. Mrs. Brennan. She was locking all the doors, and I couldn't get out. Gunner picked her up and carried her to his bed. She fell asleep pressed against his side, her small hand gripping his shirt like she was afraid he'd disappear. He didn't sleep at all. The next morning, his phone rang at 7, and Detective Mitchell. We got her. Gunner sat up careful not to wake Lily. What do you mean Victoria Brennan was arrested an hour ago? Child endangerment. The DA reviewed the evidence and agreed there's enough for charges. What about attempted murder? A pause. The DA isn't ready to go that far yet. Child endangerment carries up to 5 years. It's a start. 5 years. She tried to freeze my daughter to death, and she might get 5 years. I know it's not enough, but this is just the beginning. As we build the case, as more evidence comes in, the charges could be upgraded. The important thing is, she's in custody. She's not going anywhere. What about bail? Arraignment is tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. The DA is going to argue for high bail given the severity of the crime. But I have to be honest, Mr. Gunner, she's a teacher with no prior criminal record. Her husband has money and connections. There's a good chance she'll make bail. So she'll be walking free by tomorrow afternoon. Possibly, but she'll have conditions. She won't be able to go near schools. She won't be able to contact you or your daughter, and she'll have to surrender her passport. That's not good enough. I know, but it's the system we have. Work with me, Mr. Gunner. Let me do my job. I promise you I want to see her in prison as much as you do. I doubt that. Maybe, but I've been doing this for 20 years. I've seen a lot of people who hurt children walk free because the case against them wasn't solid enough. I'm not going to let that happen here. Trust me. Gunner wanted to argue, wanted to rage against a system that let monsters post bail and walk free. But he knew Detective Mitchell was right. If he pushed too hard, if he let his anger take control, he'd only make things worse. Fine, but I'm going to be at that arraignment, and I'm not going to be alone. I expected as much. Just keep your people in line. No threats, no intimidation. Let the court do its job. We'll be there to watch, that's all. See that it is. After he hung up, Gunner made another call. Bear answered on the second ring. Arraignment tomorrow, 9 a.m. Spread the word. How many you want? All of them, every single one. Done. Lily woke up an hour later groggy but calmer than the night before. Gunnar made her pancakes her favorite and watched her eat every bite. Daddy, yeah, baby. Is Mrs. Brennan in trouble now? Yes, the police arrested her this morning. Is she in jail? For now, there's going to be a court hearing tomorrow to decide what happens next. Will she stay in jail? Gunnar hesitated. He didn't want to lie to her, but he also didn't want to scare her. I don't know, baby, but even if she gets out, she's not allowed to come near you, and you're going to have a lot of people protecting you. Uncle Bear and all his friends. The 97 bikers. That's right. Lily was quiet for a moment, pushing a piece of pancake around her plate. Daddy, I want to go to the court thing. What? I want to see her. I want her to see me. I want her to know I'm not scared anymore. Gunnar's throat tightened. His little girl, 6 years old, and she wanted to face the woman who had nearly killed her. Baby, are you sure it might be hard? Seeing her again? I know, but I keep seeing her in my dreams and she's always big and scary. Maybe if I see her for real, she won't be so scary anymore. Gunnar reached across the table and took her hand. If that's what you want, then we'll do it together. I'll be right there with you. The whole time. Promise, promise. The morning of the arraignment, Gunnar dressed Lily in her purple sweater, the same one she'd been wearing that day. She'd asked for it specifically. I want to show her she didn't break it. She didn't break me. They arrived at the courthouse at 8:30. What they found took Gunnar's breath away. 97 motorcycles lined the street. Harleys and choppers and custom-builds chrome gleaming in the winter sun. And beside each bike stood a rider in leather arms crossed faces hard. They'd come from Idaho and Wyoming and Colorado. Brothers he'd ridden with 4 years. Brothers he'd only met once or twice. All of them here in this small Montana town for one 6-year-old girl. Bear met them at the steps. How you doing, little one? Lily looked at the army of bikers surrounding the courthouse. Her eyes were wide, but not with fear, with wonder. Are they all here for me? Every single one of them. Why, Bear knelt down so he was at eye level with Sierra. Because you're family now, and when someone hurts family, we show up. We stand together, and we make sure the world knows that what happened to you matters. Lily looked at him for a long moment. Then she reached out and hugged him, her small arms barely making it around his massive chest. Thank you, Uncle Bear. Bear's eyes glistened. He cleared his throat and stood up. Let's go inside. Time to show this woman what justice looks like. The courtroom was packed. News cameras lined the back wall. Reporters scribbled in notebooks. Local residents filled the gallery, some supportive, some curious, some hostile. And in the front row, taking up an entire section, sat 97 Hells Angels. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Their presence said everything. Gunnar found a seat near the front. Lily pressed against his side. She was trembling slightly, but her chin was up, her eyes fixed on the door where the defendant would enter. At 9 o'clock exactly, that door opened. Victoria Brennan walked in. She was smaller than Gunnar had imagined. 5'5" maybe, thin, graying hair pulled back in a severe bun. She wore a gray suit that made her look like someone's grandmother. But her eyes were cold, empty, the eyes of someone who felt nothing when they hurt a child. Lily's hand found Gunnar's and squeezed tight. That's her, she whispered. That's Mrs. Brennan. I know, baby. I'm right here. Brennan's lawyer guided her to the defense table. She sat down, adjusted her jacket, and for the first time looked at the gallery. Her eyes found the Hells Angels first. 97 men in leather staring at her with barely contained fury. She paled, looked away, scanned the crowd for a friendly face. Then her eyes found Lily. For a moment, something flickered across Brennan's face. Fear, guilt, recognition. It was there and gone so fast Gunnar couldn't be sure. But Lily saw it too, and she didn't flinch. She didn't look away. She met Victoria Brennan's gaze and held it. 6 years old, facing down the woman who had tried to kill her, and not backing down. Gunnar had never been more proud of anyone in his life. The judge entered and everyone rose. He was an older man, mid-60s, with a weathered face and tired eyes. Judge Harold Peterson. Gunnar had looked him up. 30 years on the bench, known for being tough but fair. Be seated. This is the arraignment of Victoria Ann Brennan on charges of child endangerment in the first degree. Ms. Brennan, you have the right to an attorney. Do you have representation? Brennan's lawyer stood. Richard Coleman, Your Honor. I'll be representing Ms. Brennan. Very well. How does the defendant plead? Coleman straightened his tie. Not guilty, Your Honor. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Gunner's jaw clenched. Not guilty, after everything she'd done, after the footage, after Lily's testimony. Not guilty. Order, Judge Peterson said. The court recognizes the defendant's plea. Now the matter of bail. Mr. Prosecutor. The assistant district attorney stood, young guy late 30s with an intensity that spoke of genuine conviction. Your Honor, the state requests bail be set at $500,000. The defendant deliberately placed a 6-year-old child in a life-threatening situation. The victim nearly died from hypothermia. She has permanent injuries to her fingers and toes. This was not an accident. This was not a momentary lapse in judgment. Security footage shows the defendant watching the child beg for help through a window for 4 minutes before walking away. This was calculated cruelty. This is outrageous, Coleman interrupted. My client is a respected educator with 18 years of experience. She has no criminal record. She poses no flight risk. The prosecution is exaggerating the severity of a simple disciplinary action that went wrong. Disciplinary action. The prosecutor's voice rose. She left a child outside in negative 15-degree weather without a coat for over an hour. The child's core temperature dropped to 91 degrees. Another 15 minutes, and we'd be discussing murder charges, not endangerment. Your Honor, the defense will show that my client never intended for the child to be outside for that length of time. She was distracted by classroom responsibilities and lost track of time. This is a tragedy, not a crime. Lost track of time. The prosecutor was incredulous. The security footage shows Miss Brennan watching the child through the window for 4 minutes. She saw her banging on the door. She saw her crying, and she walked away. That's not distraction. That's intent. Judge Peterson held up his hand. Enough. I've heard the arguments. He looked at Brennan. Ms. Brennan, the charges against you are serious. However, you have no prior criminal record and you have ties to the community. He paused. Bail is set at $250,000. The defendant must surrender her passport, may not leave the state, and is prohibited from any contact with the victim or her family. Additionally, she is barred from entering any school property or being in the presence of minors. Coleman nodded, satisfied. Thank you, Your Honor. We'll post bail immediately. Oh, Gunner felt his blood boil. $250,000? Brennan's husband would pay that without blinking. She'd be free by lunch. There's one more matter, Judge Peterson said. I'm told there are additional witnesses who wish to speak regarding the defendant's character. Is that correct? The prosecutor stood. Yes, Your Honor. We've been contacted by families from the defendant's previous schools who wish to share their experiences. Coleman was on his feet instantly. Objection. This is an arraignment, not a trial. Character witnesses are not appropriate at this stage. Your Honor, the prosecutor said, these families have come forward with allegations of similar behavior by the defendant in other states. If there's a pattern of abuse, it's relevant to the question of bail and the safety of the community. Judge Peterson considered this. I'll allow it. Briefly, who wishes to speak? A woman stood up in the back of the courtroom, mid-40s with tired eyes and hands that shook as she clutched a piece of paper. My name is Rebecca Torres. 7 years ago, my son Marcus was in Ms. Brennan's class in Colorado. He was 8 years old. Coleman objected again. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. Overruled, continues Ms. Torres. Rebecca took a breath. Marcus was a quiet boy, shy. He struggled with reading, and Mrs. Brennan would humiliate him in front of the class. Call him stupid. Make him stand in the corner while the other kids laughed. One day he came home with bruises on his arm. When I asked what happened, he said Ms. Brennan had grabbed him and shaken him because he couldn't answer a question fast enough. The courtroom went silent. I reported it to the school. They investigated. But Ms. Brennan had an explanation for everything. The bruises were from a fall on the playground. Marcus was exaggerating. The investigation was dropped, and 6 months later, Brennan transferred to another school. What happened to your son? The prosecutor asked. Rebecca's voice broke. He was never the same. He started wetting the bed, having nightmares. He refused to go to school. By the time he was 10, he was on medication for anxiety and depression. He's 19 now and he still struggles, all because of what that woman did to him. She pointed at Brennan. She destroyed my son, and then she moved on to destroy other children. How many more? How many more kids have to suffer before someone stops her? Another woman stood, then another, and another. 4 families, 4 different states, 4 children whose lives had been damaged by Victoria Brennan. All of them with the same story: abuse, complaints, cover-ups, transfers. By the time the last one finished speaking, the courtroom was in turmoil. Reporters were typing furiously on their phones. The gallery was buzzing with outrage. Even Judge Peterson looked shaken. "Order it," he said, but his voice had lost some of its authority. He looked at Brennan with new eyes. "In light of this testimony, I'm reconsidering the matter of bail. Ms. Brennan, the pattern of behavior described here is deeply troubling. Until these allegations can be properly investigated, I'm raising bail to $750,000 and adding electronic monitoring. The defendant will wear an ankle bracelet at all times." Coleman's face went red. "Your Honor, this is prejudicial. These allegations are unsubstantiated. They're serious enough to warrant caution, Mr. Coleman. Your client has been accused of abusing children across multiple states. Until we know the truth, I'm not taking any chances." He banged his gavel. "Court is adjourned." Guards led Brennan away. As she passed the gallery, her eyes found Lily one more time, and this time there was no mistaking the expression on her face. Hatred. Pure, undisguised hatred. She blamed Lily. Blamed a 6-year-old girl for her own downfall. Gunner pulled Lily closer, blocking her from Brennan's view. But Lily had seen. She'd seen the hate in that woman's eyes. "She's mad at me," Lily whispered. "Yes, she is, but that's because she knows she's going to lose. She knows what she did was wrong, and she knows she's going to pay for it. That makes people like her angry. Will she try to hurt me again? Never, I won't let her, and neither will Uncle Bear and all his friends. She can be as angry as she wants. She's never getting near you again." Outside the courthouse, the press was waiting. Cameras flashed. Microphones were thrust forward. Reporters shouted questions. "Mr. Gunner, how do you feel about the increased bail? Mr. Gunner, do you believe justice was served today? Mr. Gunner, what do you say to those who claim your motorcycle club is intimidating in the court?" Gunner stopped at the top of the steps, Lily in his arms. Behind him, 97 Hells Angels stood in formation, their presence undeniable. "I have one thing to say. My daughter is 6 years old. She almost died because a teacher decided she was too smart. Today, that teacher started to face consequences. But this isn't over. There are other children out there who were hurt by this woman, other families who were silenced, other schools that covered it up. We're going to find all of them. We're going to bring all of it into the light. And when the trial comes, Victoria Brennan is going to answer for every child she ever damaged." He looked directly into the nearest camera. "If you're one of those families, if your child was hurt by Victoria Brennan and you were afraid to speak up, I'm asking you to come forward now. You're not alone anymore. We'll protect you. We'll stand with you. And together we're going to make sure she never hurts another child again." A reporter called out, "What about the allegations that your club is a gang, that you're using intimidation tactics?" Gunner looked at the man. "We're not intimidating anyone. We're showing up. We're being present. We're making sure the world sees what's happening here. If that intimidates people, maybe they should ask themselves why the presence of men who protect children makes them uncomfortable." He turned and walked down the steps, Lily still in his arms. The Brotherhood parted to let him through, then closed ranks behind him. At his truck, Bear was waiting. "That was good. The press is going to run with this for days." "I hope so. The more attention, the harder it is for the system to bury it. Brennan's husband is already working the phones, trying to get the bail reduced, trying to find friendly judges. Let him try. We've got something he doesn't. What's that? The truth, and 97 witnesses who aren't going to let anyone forget it." Bear nodded. "What's next?" We wait for the trial, we keep gathering evidence, we keep finding victims, and we make sure Victoria Brennan knows that every single day between now and her conviction we're watching. And if she walks, Gunnar looked at his daughter now, asleep against his shoulder, exhausted from the morning's ordeal. She won't. I'll make sure of it. He put Lily in the truck, buckled her seatbelt, and climbed in beside her. As he pulled away from the courthouse, he could see the Brotherhood mounting their bikes' engines roaring to life one by one. 97 motorcycles. 97 men who had seen evil and refused to look away. Victoria Brennan had no idea what she'd awakened, but she was about to find out. The weeks that followed the arraignment changed everything. Gunnar's phone call to the press had worked. Within 48 hours, the story had gone national. Victoria Brennan's face was on every news channel, every website, every social media platform. The woman who tried to freeze a 6-year-old girl, the teacher who smiled while a child begged for her life, and the family started coming forward. First 1, then 3, then 7. By the end of the second week, Detective Mitchell had documented 12 separate incidents spanning 18 years in 5 states. Children locked in closets. Children left outside in extreme weather. Children grabbed, shaken, humiliated, broken. 12 children. 12 families who had been silenced, paid off, or simply ignored. Not anymore. The district attorney upgraded the charges. Child endangerment became aggravated child abuse. And with the pattern of behavior now documented, the prosecution added a new charge, attempted murder, in the 2nd degree. Victoria Brennan was looking at 25 years to life. Her husband's money couldn't save her now. His connections couldn't make this disappear. The world was watching and the world wanted justice. Lily was getting better. Slowly. The nightmares came less frequently now. She could sleep in her own bed again, though she still kept a nightlight on and insisted Gunnar check the locks on every door before she closed her eyes. The frostbite on her fingers had healed better than expected. She'd lost feeling in the tips of her left pinky and ring finger, but the doctors said she might regain some sensation over time. Her toes had fared worse. The smallest toe on her right foot had turned black and eventually required amputation. She'd cried when they told her. Not from pain, but from loss. "I'll never be able to wear sandals without people staring," she'd said. Gunnar had held her and promised that anyone who stared would have to answer to him. She'd laughed through her tears and he'd known she was going to be okay. But the psychological wounds ran deeper than the physical ones. She flinched at sudden noises. She panicked when doors closed unexpectedly. She refused to go outside when it was cold, refused to even look at snow falling. The therapist said it would take time. Months, maybe years. Trauma at this age left marks that didn't fade easily. But every day Lily fought. Every day she pushed through her fear and took another step forward. She was the bravest person Gunnar had ever known. 3 weeks before the trial, something unexpected happened. Lily asked to draw again. She'd stopped after the incident, hadn't touched her pencils, her paints, her sketchbooks. The art that had once brought her such joy had become associated with that terrible day, with the portfolio she'd forgotten, with the chain of events that nearly killed her. But that morning, she came downstairs with her sketchbook under her arm. "Daddy, can I draw something?" Gunnar's heart nearly stopped. "Of course, baby, you can draw anything you want." She sat at the kitchen table, opened to a fresh page, and picked up a pencil. For a long moment, she just stared at the blank paper. "I want to draw something for the trial." "What do you mean?" "The lawyer lady said I might have to talk to the jury, tell them what happened, but I'm scared I won't remember the right words, so I want to draw it instead. I want to show them what Mrs. Brennan did." Gunnar sat down across from her. "Are you sure that might be hard thinking about it again?" "I know, but I want her to see it. I want her to see what she did to me through my eyes. Maybe then she'll understand." Gunnar reached across the table and took her hand. "I don't think Mrs. Brennan is capable of understanding, baby. I don't think she feels things the way normal people do." "Then I want the jury to understand. I want everyone to understand what it felt like. To be so cold you can't feel your fingers. To bang on the door and have nobody come. To see her face in the window smiling." Oh, she looked at him with those eyes that were so much older than 6 years. "I need to do this, Daddy. For me." "Okay, then do it. I'll be right here if you need me." Lily nodded and started drawing. She worked for hours that day, and the next day, and the day after that. When she finally showed Gunnar what she'd created, he had to leave the room so she wouldn't see him cry. 5 drawings, 5 moments from that terrible morning. The first showed Lily in the classroom, her hand raised, trying to help. In the drawing, a dark figure loomed over her face, twisted with rage. The second showed Lily being pushed through a door into whiteness, her coat being torn from her body, her small figure stumbling into the cold. The third showed the door, closed, locked, and Lily's hands pressed against the glass, her mouth open in a scream that no one heard. The fourth showed the window, and behind it a face, smiling, watching, enjoying. The fifth showed Lily curled against the wall, small, alone, blue, dying. They were the drawings of a child, simple in some ways, with the proportions not quite right and the perspective slightly off. But they carried an emotional truth that no photograph, no video, no testimony could match. When the prosecutor saw them, she asked if Lily would be willing to present them to the jury herself. Lily said yes. The trial began on a Monday in March. Snow still covered the ground outside the courthouse, but the days were getting longer, warmer. Spring was coming. After the longest winter of their lives, spring was finally coming. Gunnar arrived early with Lily. Behind them came Bear, Diesel, Ghost, and 94 other brothers. They filled the gallery again just as they had at the arraignment. Leather and denim and iron resolve. Victoria Brennan sat at the defense table, thinner now than she'd been 3 months ago. The time on house arrest had not been kind to her. Her husband sat behind her, still loyal, still funding her defense. But he looked tired too, worn down by the constant media attention, the protesters outside their house, the neighbors who'd stopped speaking to them. The jury had been selected the week before. 12 citizens from the surrounding counties, chosen for their ability to be impartial. But Gunnar had seen their faces when the charges were read. He'd seen the disgust, the horror, the anger. They weren't impartial, not really. How could anyone be impartial when faced with what Victoria Brennan had done? The prosecutor, a woman named Catherine Walsh, gave her opening statement first. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about a choice made by a grown woman, a teacher, someone entrusted with the care and safety of children. On February 14th of this year, Victoria Brennan made a choice. She chose to take a 6-year-old girl, strip her of her coat and gloves, and lock her outside in negative 15-degree weather. She chose to watch that child bang on the door, begging to be let in. She chose to smile while that child froze. And then she chose to walk away and let that child die. Walsh paused, letting the words sink in. Lily Gunnar survived, but only by minutes. When her father found her, her core temperature had dropped to 91 degrees. She had severe hypothermia. She had frostbite that resulted in the amputation of one of her toes. She was 6 years old, and she came within minutes of death because Victoria Brennan decided she needed to be punished for being smart. She walked toward the jury box. But Lily wasn't the first. Over the course of this trial, you will hear from 12 families whose children were victimized by the defendant. 12 children in 5 states over 18 years. Children who were locked in closets. Children who were left outside in extreme temperatures. Children who were grabbed, shaken, humiliated. 12 children whose lives were damaged by a woman who should have protected them. Walsh turned and pointed at Brennan. Victoria Brennan is not a teacher who made a mistake. She is a predator who used her position to hurt the most vulnerable among us, and it's time she was held accountable. The defense attorney Coleman gave his own opening statement. He talked about context, about misunderstanding, about a dedicated educator who had devoted her life to children and made one terrible error in judgment. The jury didn't look convinced. The first witnesses were the paramedics who had responded to the 911 call. They described Lily's condition when they arrived. The blue lips, the violent shaking, the core temperature that was dangerously close to fatal. In your professional opinion, Walsh asked, how much longer could the victim have survived outside in those conditions? The lead paramedic, a man with 20 years of experience, didn't hesitate. 15 to 20 minutes maximum. Her body was shutting down. Another few minutes of exposure, and we would have been responding to a fatality. The next witness was the emergency room doctor who had treated Lily. She described the treatment process, the warming protocols, the agonizing hours of uncertainty. The damage to her extremities was severe, the doctor said. We were able to save most of her fingers, but the frostbite to her right foot was too advanced. We had to amputate her smallest toe. And the psychological impact. Post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression. This child will be dealing with the effects of what happened to her for the rest of her life. On the second day, Detective Mitchell took the stand. She walked the jury through the investigation. The security footage, the witness statements, the pattern of abuse that stretched back nearly 2 decades. We identified 12 prior victims, Mitchell said, 12 children who reported abuse by the defendant. In every case, the complaint was either dismissed, settled quietly, or covered up. The defendant was simply transferred to a new school free to continue her behavior. And why do you believe these incidents were covered up? The defendant's husband is a former school board member with connections throughout the region. Evidence suggests he used those connections to protect his wife, to silence victims, and to facilitate her transfers to new positions. Coleman objected. Speculation, Your Honor. Overruled. The witness may continue. Mitchell looked at the jury. This wasn't a single incident. This was a pattern, a system of abuse that was allowed to continue because the people who should have stopped it chose to look away. And the husband shifted uncomfortably in his seat. For the first time, he didn't look so confident. On the third day, the other families testified. Rebecca Torres went first. She told the jury about her son Marcus, about the bruises, about the years of therapy that followed. She cried on the stand, but she didn't back down. He was 8 years old, she said. He trusted his teacher, and she destroyed him. After her came David Hensley, whose daughter had been locked in a storage closet for 3 hours when she was 7. He described finding his daughter curled in a ball, unresponsive, after the janitor finally heard her screaming. She didn't speak for a week after that. She just shut down. It took years of therapy before she could even talk about what happened. Then came Michael Chen, whose son had been left outside during a thunderstorm. Patricia Morales, whose daughter had been grabbed so hard she'd had bruises for weeks. James and Linda Crawford, whose twin boys had both been victimized by Brennan in the same year. One by one, they told their stories. One by one, they painted a picture of a woman who had spent 18 years hurting children and getting away with it. By the time the last family finished testifying, the jury looked shell-shocked. Several were crying. One man kept shaking his head, unable to comprehend how this had been allowed to happen. On the fourth day, Lily took the stand. Gunnar had prepared her as best he could, told her what to expect, practiced the questions she might be asked. But nothing could truly prepare a 6-year-old for facing her abuser in a court of law. She walked to the witness stand holding her drawings, her purple sweater, her hair in 2 braids tied with ribbons her grandmother had sent. She looked impossibly small in that big wooden chair. The bailiff brought her a booster seat so she could see over the railing. She thanked him politely, and Gunnar saw several jurors smile despite the gravity of the moment. That was his daughter, polite even in the worst circumstances. Walsh approached gently. Hi, Lily. Thank you for being here today. I know this is hard, but it's okay. I want to help. Can you tell the jury what happened on February 14th? Lily took a breath, and then in a clear, steady voice that belied her age, she told her story. She told them about the spelling mistake, about trying to help, about Mrs. Brennan's face turning red with anger. She called me a show-off. She said I thought I was better than everyone else. But I didn't think that. I just wanted to help. What happened next? She grabbed my arm really hard, and she pushed me toward the door. She took my coat and my gloves, and she pushed me outside. What did you do when you were outside? I tried to come back in, but the door was locked. I banged on it and called for help, but nobody came. How long were you outside? I don't know. It felt like forever. I was so cold I couldn't feel my hands or my feet. I tried to find another door, but they were all locked too. Did you see Mrs. Brennan while you were outside? Lily nodded. I saw her in the window. She was watching me, and her voice faltered. For the first time, she looked uncertain. Take your time, Lily. What was Mrs. Brennan doing? She was smiling. She watched me bang on the door and cry, and she smiled. Then she walked away. The courtroom was silent, absolutely silent. Lily, you brought some drawings with you today. Can you tell us what they are? I drew pictures of what happened so people could understand what it felt like. Would you like to show the jury? Lily nodded. She held up the first drawing and began to explain. As she went through each image describing the fear, the cold, the loneliness, the cruelty, Gunnar watched the jury. He watched their faces change. He watched the horror dawn in their eyes. He watched them look at Victoria Brennan with something beyond disgust. When Lily held up the fourth drawing, the one showing Brennan's face in the window smiling, One juror actually gasped. "This is when I knew she wasn't going to help me," Lily said. "This is when I knew she wanted me to die." Coleman started to object, but something made him stop. Maybe he realized how it would look challenging a 6-year-old abuse victim. Maybe he saw the jury's faces and knew it was already over. Lily finished with the last drawing, herself curled against the wall, blue, dying. "I thought I was going to die," she said. "I was so cold I couldn't move. I couldn't even shiver anymore. I just wanted to close my eyes and go to sleep, and then my daddy found me." She looked across the courtroom at Gunnar, and tears were streaming down her face. "My daddy saved me. He rode through the snow on his motorcycle just to bring me my art project. And he found me. If he hadn't come, I would have died." Walsh gave Lily a moment to collect herself. Then, "One more question, Lily. Is the woman who did this to you in this courtroom today?" Lily looked directly at Victoria Brennan, and her voice when she spoke was steady as steel. "Yes, she's right there. That's Mrs. Brennan, and I'm not scared of her anymore." Coleman's cross-examination was brief. He knew better than to attack a 6-year-old on the stand. He asked a few gentle questions about memory and perception, trying to plant seeds of doubt without appearing cruel. But Lily didn't waver. She answered every question clearly, calmly, certainly. She was 6 years old, and she was the strongest witness Gunnar had ever seen. After Lily stepped down, Walsh played the security footage. The courtroom watched in horrified silence as the events of February 14th played out on screen. Brennan grabbing Lily's arm, pulling off her coat, pushing her through the door. Lily banging on the glass, her small fists pounding her mouth, forming words that couldn't be heard. And then the window shot. Brennan standing there watching her lips curved in an unmistakable smile. 4 minutes of watching a child beg for her life, then turning, walking away, returning to her classroom like nothing had happened. When the footage ended, no one spoke. The jury sat in stunned silence. Several were crying openly. Coleman didn't even attempt to explain it away. The closing arguments came on day 5. Walsh summarized the evidence methodically. The pattern of abuse, the deliberate cruelty, the smile that proved intent. Victoria Brennan didn't make a mistake, she said. She made a choice, and that choice was to let a 6-year-old girl die. The only reason Lily Gunnar is alive today is because her father happened to arrive in time to save her, not because of anything Victoria Brennan did. She had every intention of letting that child freeze to death. Coleman tried. He really did. He talked about reasonable doubt, about the chaos of a classroom, about how his client had simply lost track of time. But everyone could see the desperation in his voice. Everyone knew it was over. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood. "On the charge of attempted murder in the 2nd degree, we find the defendant guilty." A sob came from somewhere in the gallery. Brennan's husband finally broken. "On the charge of aggravated child abuse, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of child endangerment in the 1st degree, we find the defendant guilty on all 12 counts." Brennan collapsed in her chair. Her attorney put a hand on her shoulder, but she shook it off. She turned and looked at Gunnar, at Lily, at the 97 Hells Angels who had watched every moment of her downfall. And for the first time, Victoria Brennan looked afraid. Judge Peterson set sentencing for the following month. Brennan was taken into custody immediately, bail revoked. As the guards led her away, Lily tugged on Gunnar's sleeve. "Daddy." "Yeah, baby. We won." Gunnar picked her up and held her close. "Yeah, baby. We won." Outside the courthouse, the Brotherhood was waiting. 97 engines roared to life in unison, a thunderous declaration that echoed through the streets. Not violence, never violence, victory, justice. A promise kept. 6 months changed everything. Spring had melted into summer, and summer had burned into fall. The leaves on the mountain were turning golden red, and the air carried that crisp Montana bite that warned of winter coming. But this year, winter didn't scare Lily the way it had before. She was healing, slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely healing. The sentencing had come in April. Judge Peterson, after reviewing all the evidence, all the testimony, all the years of abuse that had finally been brought into the light, had shown no mercy. Victoria Brennan received 22 years in state prison, no possibility of parole for 15 years. Her teaching license was permanently revoked. Her name was added to the National Registry of Child Abusers. She would never teach again. She would never hurt another child. When the sentence was read, Brennan had screamed, actually screamed a sound of pure rage and disbelief that echoed through the courtroom. Guards had to restrain her as she was dragged away, still screaming, still cursing, still refusing to accept that her decades of cruelty had finally caught up with her. Lily had watched it all with calm, steady eyes. "She's really going away," she'd asked afterward. "For a very long time, baby. She can't hurt you anymore. She can't hurt anyone." Good. That single word spoken with such quiet certainty told Gunnar everything he needed to know. His daughter wasn't just surviving, she was reclaiming herself. The civil lawsuit had settled out of court in June. The school district, facing overwhelming evidence of negligence and cover-up, had agreed to a substantial settlement, enough to pay for Lily's therapy, her education, her future. Enough to send a message that protecting abusers came with consequences. Principal Morrison had been fired. 3 school board members had resigned. The district had implemented new policies requiring background checks that actually checked backgrounds, reporting systems that actually reported, and accountability measures that actually held people accountable. It wasn't enough to undo 18 years of damage. Nothing could do that. But it was a start. The other families had received settlements too. Smaller amounts, but meaningful ones. Acknowledgement that their children had been failed by the very institutions meant to protect them. Rebecca Torres had called Gunnar the day her settlement was finalized. "I wanted to thank you," she'd said, her voice thick with emotion. "For years I thought I was alone. I thought no one would believe me. And then I saw you on the news standing outside that courthouse demanding justice for your daughter. You gave me the courage to speak up again. You gave yourself that courage. I just opened the door. You did more than that. You showed us that we didn't have to be silent anymore, that we could fight back, that together we could win." After she hung up, Gunnar had sat in his kitchen for a long time thinking about all the families who had suffered in silence, all the children who had been hurt and then told their pain didn't matter, all the parents who had been made to feel crazy for believing their kids. No more. Never again. Not on his watch. Lily started at her new school in September. Riverside Elementary had welcomed her with open arms. The principal, a woman named Dr. Sandra Coleman, had personally called Gunnar before the school year began. "I want you to know that Lily will be safe here. We've read her file. We know what she's been through, and I promise you every teacher in this building will treat her with the care and respect she deserves. That's all I ask. There's something else. Lily's previous school sent over her academic records and her artwork. Mr. Gunnar, your daughter is extraordinary. Her reading level, her artistic ability, her problem-solving skills. She's gifted, truly gifted. We have a program for students like her, and I'd like to recommend her for it." Gunnar had felt a surge of pride mixed with caution. The last time someone called her gifted, it didn't end well. "I understand, but I promise you this program celebrates children for their abilities. It doesn't punish them. Lily deserves to be challenged to grow to reach her full potential. Will you at least consider it?" He'd talked to Lily that night, explained the program, asked her what she thought. Her answer had surprised him. "I want to try it, Daddy. I'm not scared anymore. Mrs. Brennan is gone. She can't hurt me. And I want to be smart again. I want to learn and draw and ask questions without being afraid." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure, and Daddy." "Yeah, baby. If anyone is ever mean to me again, I'll tell you right away. I won't be quiet. I won't pretend it's okay. I'll fight back the right way like you taught me." Gunnar had pulled her into his arms and held her for a long time. His little girl was finding her way back, and she was stronger than ever. The gifted program was everything Dr. Coleman had promised. Lily flourished. Her teachers encouraged her curiosity, celebrated her insights, challenged her to think bigger and dream larger. For the first time since before the incident, she came home excited about school. She talked about her projects, her classmates, her ideas with a joy that Gunnar had been afraid he'd never see again. She started drawing again. Really drawing. Not just the trauma pictures she'd created for the trial, but beautiful, hopeful images of the world as she wanted it to be. Landscapes filled with color, portraits of people she loved, abstract compositions that tried to capture emotions too big for words. Her therapist said the art was part of her healing, a way of processing her experiences and reclaiming her creative spirit. Gunnar didn't care about the psychology. He just cared that his daughter was smiling again. In October, Dr. Coleman called with unexpected news. There's going to be a regional art competition next month. Students from schools across Montana will be submitting their work. I'd like to nominate Lily. An art competition? Yes. The theme this year is Heroes in My Life. Each student creates an original piece representing someone who has inspired them or protected them. Given everything Lily has been through, I think she might have a unique perspective to share. Gunnar hesitated. The idea of putting Lily in the spotlight again, of making her the center of attention, worried him. She'd been through so much already. Can I talk to her about it first? Of course, take all the time you need. That evening, Gunnar explained the competition to Lily. She listened carefully, her brow furrowed in concentration, the same expression she wore when she was working on a difficult problem. Heroes in my life, she repeated. That's the theme. That's right. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. There's no pressure. Lily was quiet for a moment. Then, I want to do it. Are you sure it might mean a lot of attention? People might want to talk about what happened to you. I know, but I have something I want to show people. Something important. What's that? She looked at him with those eyes that had seen too much and survived anyway. I want to show them my uncles. Gunnar frowned. Your uncles. Uncle Bear, Uncle Diesel, Uncle Ghost. All of them. The 97 buyers who came to protect me. They're my heroes, Daddy. All of them. Gunnar's throat tightened. Baby, that's a lot of drawings. I know, 97 portraits. One for each of them. Can you help me? Can you get me pictures of all of them so I can draw their faces? You want to draw 97 portraits? Yes, and I want to call it my uncles, because that's what they are. They're my family. They came from all over to help me, and I never got to thank them properly. This is how I want to thank them. For a long moment, Gunnar couldn't speak. The magnitude of what his daughter was proposing, the love and gratitude behind it, overwhelmed him. I'll get you the pictures, he finally said. Every single one. The next 6 weeks were a blur of activity. Gunnar reached out to Bear, who reached out to the Brotherhood. Within days, photographs started arriving. Some professional, some casual, some clearly taken specifically for this purpose. 97 faces, 97 men who had answered the call when one of their own needed them. Lily worked every day after school, every weekend, every spare moment she could find. She spread the photographs across her bedroom floor, studying each face, memorizing each detail. Then she picked up her pencils and began to draw. Some portraits came easily. Bear's weathered face with its deep lines and kind eyes practically drew itself. Diesel's sharp features and knowing smile. Ghost's pale eyes that seemed to see everything. Others were more challenging. Brothers she'd never met whose faces she knew only from photographs. Men with scars, with tattoos, with expressions that spoke of hard lives and harder choices. But she drew them all, every single one. And as she drew, she wrote small notes on the back of each portrait explaining who this person was and why they mattered. Uncle Bear came from 2 states away. He saved my drawings when my daddy dropped them in the snow. Uncle Diesel found out about all these other kids Mrs. Brennan hurt. He helped make sure she couldn't hurt anyone else. Uncle Ghost watched Mrs. Brennan's house so she couldn't run away from the police. 97 portraits, 97 notes, 97 thank yous from a 6-year-old girl who understood the value of what she'd been given. When she finally finished 2 days before the competition deadline, she called Gunnar into her room. It's done, Daddy. Come see. He walked in and stopped breathing. The portraits covered every surface, walls, floor, bed, desk. 97 faces looking back at him, rendered in colored pencil with a skill that seemed impossible for a child her age. But more than the skill, it was the love that hit him. Every portrait radiated it. These weren't just drawings of faces. They were drawings of family. Baby, this is incredible. Do you think they'll like it, the uncles? They'll love it. I promise you they'll love it. Lily smiled, and for a moment she looked like the carefree child she'd been before February 14th, before Victoria Brennan, before the cold and the fear and the locked doors. Good, because I love them, all of them. They're my heroes. The competition was held on a Saturday in mid-November. Gunnar drove Lily to the convention center in Helena, where schools from across the region had gathered to display their students' work. He expected a few dozen entries. maybe 100 at most. He wasn't prepared for what he found. The convention center was packed. Hundreds of students, thousands of parents and teachers and community members all gathered to celebrate young artists and their visions of heroism. Lily's entry had been given a special display near the center of the main hall. 97 portraits arranged in a grid pattern with a small placard explaining the project. My Uncles, by Lily Gunner, age 6. These are the 97 members of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club who came to protect me when I needed them most. They are my heroes. They are my family. People were already gathering around the display when Gunnar and Lily arrived. Some were crying, some were taking photographs, some were just standing in silence, overwhelmed by the scale and the heart of what this small girl had created. A reporter approached them, then another, then a whole pack microphones and cameras, and shouted questions. Lily, what inspired you to create this piece? Lily, how long did it take you to draw 97 portraits? Lily, what would you say to other children who have been through what you experienced? Lily looked at the reporters, then at her father. Gunnar nodded. She could handle this. He knew she could. She turned back to the cameras. I drew these pictures because I wanted to say thank you. When Mrs. Brennan hurt me, when she left me outside to freeze, I thought nobody cared. I thought I was alone. But then my daddy found me. And then 97 people came from all over to help us. They didn't know me. They'd never met me, but they came anyway, because that's what family does. What do you want people to take away from your art? Lily thought about it for a moment. I want them to know that they're not alone. If someone hurts you, if someone makes you feel scared or small or worthless, there are people who will help you. You just have to ask. You just have to speak up. And when good people hear you, they come. They come from 2 states away, from 3 states away, from wherever they are, because protecting kids is more important than anything else. The reporter's eyes were wet. That's a beautiful message, Lily. It's the truth. I know because I lived it. The judging took place that afternoon. Lily sat with Gunnar watching as officials moved through the displays, making notes on their clipboards, conferring in hushed voices. She held his hand tight, but she wasn't nervous. Whatever happened, she'd already won. She'd created something beautiful. She'd honored the people who had saved her. The rest was just details. But when the results were announced, when Lily's name was called for first place, she screamed, not in pain, not in fear, in pure, uncontainable joy. She ran to the front of the room, accepted her blue ribbon and certificate from the judges, and held them up like trophies. The audience erupted in applause, rising to their feet, cheering for a 6-year-old girl who had turned her trauma into triumph. And then the doors at the back of the convention center opened. Gunnar heard them first, that distinctive rumble that announced the Brotherhood like a thunderstorm. He turned and felt his heart stop. They were here, all of them. 97 Hells Angels filing into the convention center, leather and denim and iron resolve. They'd come from Idaho and Wyoming and Colorado just like before. But this time they weren't here to intimidate or protect or stand vigil. They were here to celebrate. Lily saw them and her face transformed. The joy that was already there expanded, deepened, became something almost too big for her small body to contain. My uncles, she shouted. My uncles are here. She ran toward them, still clutching her ribbon, and the first one she reached was Bear. He knelt down so she could throw her arms around his neck. You came, she said. You all came. We wouldn't have missed it, little one, not for anything in the world. Did you see my drawings? Did you see your face? I saw it. You made me look handsome. You are handsome. You're the handsomest uncle I have. Bear laughed, a deep, rumbling sound that shook his whole body. Don't let the others hear you say that. They'll get jealous. One by one, the brothers approached. Diesel, Ghost, men whose names Lily didn't know, but whose faces she'd memorized and drawn with loving care. Each one knelt to receive her hug. Each one thanked her for remembering them. Each one told her how proud they were. 97 hugs, 97 thank yous, 97 moments of connection between a 6-year-old girl and the army of protectors who had claimed her as their own. When she finally made her way back to Gunnar, her face was streaked with tears of happiness. Daddy, did you do this? Did you ask them to come? I told them about the competition. The rest was their choice. They came for me, all of them. Again. That's what family does, baby. They show up, no matter what. Bear approached holding something in his hands, a patch, custom made just like the one he'd given her after the arraignment. But this one was different. We had a vote, Bear said. Unanimous decision. From this day forward, you're not just protected by the Brotherhood. You're part of it. He held up the patch. It read, Lily Gunner, youngest Hell's Angel, protected by 97. Lily took it reverently, running her fingers over the embroidered letters. I'm a Hell's Angel honorary member. The first one we've ever had, because you showed us something important. You showed us that courage isn't about being big or strong or scary. It's about standing up even when you're afraid. It's about speaking the truth even when it's hard. It's about turning pain into something beautiful. He gestured at the portraits surrounding them. You honored us with these drawings. Now we're honoring you. Welcome to the family, little one. For real this time. Lily threw her arms around him again, and Bear held her close, this massive man cradling this tiny girl like she was made of glass and steel and starlight. The crowd watched in silence. Reporters captured the moment in camera. Parents held their children a little tighter. And somewhere in a prison cell hundreds of miles away, Victoria Brennan sat in the darkness alone and forgotten while the girl she tried to destroy celebrated with an army of protectors. Justice had been served, but more than that, hope had been restored. Outside the convention center after the ceremony ended and the crowds dispersed, Gunner stood with Lily in the parking lot. 97 motorcycles surrounded them, engines idling exhaust, creating clouds in the cold November air. Daddy. Yeah, baby. Do you think Mommy can see us from heaven? Gunner looked up at the sky at the stars just beginning to appear in the fading light. I think she can, baby. I think she's been watching the whole time. Do you think she's proud of me? I know she is. She was always proud of you, even before you did anything to be proud of. You were her miracle, her greatest gift. Lily leaned against him, her small hand finding his. I miss her. I miss her too, every day. But I'm glad I have you, and I'm glad I have my uncles, and I'm glad Mrs. Brennan is in jail forever. Not forever, but long enough. Long enough for what? Gunner looked at his daughter, at the ribbon in her hand, at the patch pressed against her heart, at the army of protectors surrounding them. Long enough for you to grow up safe. Long enough for you to become whoever you're meant to be. Long enough for the world to change so that what happened to you never happens to another child again. Is the world going to change? Yes, because of you, because you spoke up. Because you didn't let them silence you. Every time someone tells your story, every time someone sees your drawings, every time someone remembers what you went through and how you survived it, the world changes a little bit. Hearts open, eyes open, and people who might have looked the other way decide to stand up instead. Lily was quiet for a moment processing this. So something good came out of something bad. The best things often do, baby. Pain can break us or it can make us stronger. Fear can silence us or it can give us something to fight against. What Mrs. Brennan did to you was evil. But what you did with that pain, how you turned it into art and hope and justice, that's beautiful. That's heroic. That's something no one can ever take away from you. Bear approached, breaking the moment gently. We're ready to ride, brother. 97 bikes all pointed toward home. You two want an escort? Gunner looked at Lily. What do you say? Want to lead the pack? Her eyes went wide. Can I push on? Your call. Lily looked at the motorcycles, at the men who had become her family, at the path stretching out before her. Let's ride. Gunner climbed into his truck. Lily buckled in beside him. He pulled out of the parking lot and 97 motorcycles fell into formation behind him. They rode through Helena as the sun set a convoy of chrome and leather and love. People stopped on the sidewalks to watch. Cars pulled over to let them pass. Children pointed and waved, and Lily waved back, her blue ribbon clutched in one hand, her honorary patch in the other. This was what victory looked like. Not violence, not revenge, but justice served, trauma healed, and family found in the most unexpected places. Behind them, the sun sank below the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold and red. Ahead of them, home waited. Warmth waited. The future waited. And Lily Gunner, 6-year-old survivor, artist honorary Hell's Angel, rode toward it all without fear. She had been left to freeze in the cold. She had been abandoned by someone who should have protected her. She had looked death in the face and somehow found the strength to keep fighting. And now she was here, alive, thriving, surrounded by people who would move heaven and earth to keep her safe. If you believe children should be protected, not punished for their intelligence, share this story. Comment, stand with Lily, if you believe that no child should ever suffer what she suffered. Subscribe if you believe that when good people unite, when they refuse to stay silent, when they stand together against cruelty and injustice, they can change the world. 97 Hell's Angels proved that on a frozen February morning. A 6-year-old girl proved it with 97 portraits drawn and colored to pencil. And the echo of their engines rumbling through the mountains as the stars came out overhead carried a promise that would never be broken. Hurt a child and justice will find you. Stand for the innocent and you will never stand alone. This is not just a story. This is a truth written in courage, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bond between a father and his daughter. Victoria Brennan thought she could silence a child by leaving her to freeze. Instead, she awakened an army. And that army is still out there watching, waiting, ready to ride whenever a child needs protecting. 97 strong, forever united, never forgotten.